Come closer, my child. Do not rush your heart past this moment. I am calling you gently, not with fear, not with urgency, but with a quiet authority that settles your spirit. You felt this pull for a reason. Something within you sensed a shift before your mind could explain it. I saw you pause. I saw you wonder why your thoughts kept returning to the same person, the same feeling, the same unspoken question. That was not coincidence. That was me. Rest here with me for a moment. Let your breathing slow. Let the noise of other voices fade. There are things being spoken about you that you have not heard with your ears, but your spirit has felt the echo. You notice the subtle change, the silence that lingered too long, the warmth that cooled without explanation. I want you to know that nothing concerning you escapes my awareness. Not a word whispered behind closed doors. Not a glance exchanged when your name is mentioned. Not even the thoughts they try to bury under laughter. I am not calling you to alarm you. I am calling you to steady you. What is being revealed will not harm you, though it may surprise you. You are not fragile in my hands. You are protected. You are seen. And you are far more powerful in this story than you realize. The one you love deeply has been wrestling internally. Their heart has been divided between admiration and fear, between truth and the influence of voices that do not carry my wisdom. They have spoken, yes, but not from cruelty. They spoke from confusion, from vulnerability, from a place where they did not yet understand the weight of their own emotions. I have been watching their eyes linger on your image longer than they admit. I have heard the tone shift when your name leaves their mouth. There is tenderness there, even when the words fail. My child, your face carries more than physical beauty. It carries memory and carries reflection. When they look at you, they see parts of themselves they have not healed, parts they admire and fear at the same time. This is why your presence stirs conversation when you are not in the room. This is why others notice the change in them before they do. Light always provokes a response, even when it is gentle. I need you to hear this clearly. You have done nothing wrong. You have not been foolish to love. You have not been blind to trust. The tenderness you offered was pure, and purity always exposes what is hidden around it. That exposure can make others uncomfortable. It can invite commentary. It can draw jealousy like moss to a flame. But none of that diminishes you. I am positioning you to see without being wounded, to hear without being broken. There is a reason I am speaking before the full truth surfaces. I am preparing your heart so that when understanding arrives, it will land on solid ground, not on fear. You are not about to lose yourself. You are about to see clearly. Stay with me as this unfolds. Do not jump ahead in your thoughts. Do not assume the ending before I reveal the path. I'm guiding every step, every conversation, every awakening. What feels uncertain now will soon make sense. What feels personal is actually purposeful. You are safe. You are chosen. And this story is still under my authority. Listen carefully, my child, because this is where the veil begins to lift. What I am about to reveal may have already brushed against your intuition, like a breeze you could not explain. The one you love has been speaking about your face. Not casually, not indifferently. Your name has entered rooms where you were not present, and when it did, the atmosphere shifted. Their voice changed. Their energy tightened. This was not mockery, and it was not praise in the way the world understands praise. It was something far more revealing. They spoke of your face because it unsettles them. It stays with them after conversations end. It appears in their mind when they are trying to focus on someone else, They have described it to their female friends not as an object, but as a feeling they cannot shake. They tried to sound neutral. They tried to sound detached. But every word carried the weight of unresolved emotion. I heard the pauses between their sentences. I heard the nervous laughter meant to disguise vulnerability. Your face reflects truth back to them. When they look at you, they cannot hide. Old wounds rise. Regrets surface. Desires they thought they buried come back into focus. This is why they talk about it. This is why they analyze it with others instead of sitting alone with the truth. They are trying to understand why you affect them so deeply without surrendering control. Some of the women listening smiled on the surface while measuring you in their hearts. Some leaned closer, pretending curiosity while feeding comparison. Not all of them wished you well, and your soulmate felt that tension even as they spoke. Part of them wanted reassurance. Part of them wanted permission to minimize what they feel. So they described your face in fragments, never fully, never honestly, because honesty would have required them to admit how deeply you matter. My child, I want you to understand this without pain. They were not criticizing you. They were circling around a truth they are afraid to name. They spoke of your eyes lingering too long, of expressions that made them uncomfortable because they felt seen. They mentioned how you look when you are quiet, when you are unaware of being watched. Those moments exposed their vulnerability more than they exposed you. This is where jealousy began to stir. Not because you did anything to provoke it, but because light always provokes reaction. Some of those listening sensed that your presence holds power. They recognized that your face is not easily forgotten. And instead of honoring that, they began to question it, to dissect it, to diminish it in subtle ways. Words layered with humor, comments disguised as opinions, seeds planted gently but intentionally. And still, your soulmate defended you more than they realize. They corrected details. They softened edges. They avoided agreement when others tried to twist the narrative. Their heart pulled them in opposite directions, and the tension exhausted them. They left those conversations heavier than when they entered, wondering why speaking about you never brings relief. I am telling you this now so you do not personalize what was never about your worth. This was about their fear of exposure. This was about others sensing your impact and responding from insecurity. You are not being judged. You are being noticed. If this word is reaching you, if something in your spirit is resonating instead of recoiling, pause with me for a moment. Let your presence be known. Gently affirm this connection by showing gratitude for what is being revealed. You may quietly express that alignment by supporting this message in whatever way feels natural to you. And if you feel led, you can write in the comments, "I receive clarity," as a marker of your readiness to see without fear. This is not for me. It is for you. What comes next will explain why these conversations matter and how they are shaping an awakening your soulmate cannot avoid. Stay close. I am not finished speaking. I want you to stay very still with me now, because this part requires discernment, not emotion. Beneath the surface of those conversations was another layer you could not see. Your soulmate did not speak once. They spoke repeatedly. Not always with the same people. Not always with the same tone. Each time, the story shifted slightly because they were not telling a story about you. They were processing themselves. I brought you up in moments of uncertainty, when laughter felt forced and connection elsewhere felt empty. They mentioned your face as if it were a puzzle they could not solve. Sometimes they framed it as curiosity, other times as confusion. But there was a thread that never broke. You lingered. Even when they tried to move on to another topic, your presence pulled the conversation back. That is how I know your soul has touched theirs in a way they did not expect. There were moments when one of the women leaned in too close, asking questions that sounded innocent but were not. What does she look like when she smiles? Is she confident? Does she know how powerful she is? Your soulmate answered carefully, instinctively guarding something sacred without fully understanding why. They withheld details. They changed subjects. They laughed when they should have paused. This is what fear looks like when love has not yet matured. My child, hear this clearly. They are not proud of these conversations. Afterward, when they were alone, there was a heaviness in their chest, a sense that they had revealed too much and yet not enough. They replayed your face in their mind, not the version they described, but the real one. The one that looks at them without masks. The one that sees through their defenses. That is the face that undoes them. You must understand the conflict. They wanted validation from others, but they did not receive peace. They wanted distance, but they felt drawn closer. They wanted to simplify you into something they could explain, but you resisted every attempt to be reduced. This frustrated them, not because you lacked clarity, but because you carry depth. Some of those women began to speculate. They wondered aloud why you had such an effect. They questioned your influence. A few pretended indifference while studying you in silence. Comparison began quietly, almost politely. But comparison always carries a blade. And your soulmate felt the shift. They felt the room change. They sensed that what they shared had awakened something competitive, something intrusive. This is where regret began to form. They realized too late that not everyone deserves access to what touches their heart. They felt exposed, not because you were discussed, but because their attachment was revealed. Even if no one said it plainly, everyone felt it. You mattered to them more than they intended to admit. I want you to know that I was present in every one of those conversations. I weighed every word. I watched every reaction. Nothing spiraled beyond my control. What was meant to confuse is being used to clarify. What was spoken in uncertainty is becoming the catalyst for truth. Do not imagine whispers in dark corners. Do not picture ridicule or rejection. That is not what happened. What happened was far more powerful. Your existence disrupted comfort. Your image challenged complacency. Your face became a mirror no one expected to look into. And your soulmate is beginning to realize that speaking about you without understanding you only deepens their unrest. They are approaching a moment where silence will no longer suffice, and avoidance will no longer protect them. Something must be faced. Stay anchored in me. You do not need to confront. You do not need to explain. You do not need to change a single thing about yourself. I am orchestrating a reckoning that will not harm you. It will refine them. What is hidden is moving toward the light. And your name, once spoken in fragments, will soon be spoken with clarity. My child, this is where the weight settled on their heart. After the conversations ended and the rooms emptied, your soulmate was left alone with what they stirred. Their chest felt tight in ways they could not explain. They replayed their own words and felt a quiet shame rise, not because they spoke of you, but because they spoke around the truth instead of into it. They realized they had tried to manage something sacred with careless language, and it unsettled them deeply. They began to question themselves. Why does her face stay with me like this? Why does describing her never feel accurate? Why do I feel exposed every time I say her name? These questions did not bring comfort. They brought restlessness. They lay awake, staring into darkness, feeling a longing they were not ready to honor and a fear they did not want to confess. This is the collapse you could not see, the inward unraveling that followed the outward calm. There was guilt, yes, but it was not rooted in wrongdoing. It was rooted in self-betrayal. They sensed they had minimized something meaningful to protect themselves from vulnerability. They worried that by letting others comment, compare, and speculate, they had placed you in a space you never asked to occupy. That awareness made them withdraw emotionally, not from you, but from themselves. They went quiet. They became distant in ways that confused even them. I want you to hear this gently. Your silence was not indifference. It was overwhelm. Their heart did not know how to reconcile admiration with fear, desire with uncertainty, truth with timing. They felt unworthy of the way you see them. Your gaze carries acceptance they have not yet learned to give themselves, and that made them uncomfortable in ways they could not articulate. They questioned whether they deserved you. They wondered if they would fail you. They feared being seen fully and falling short. So instead of leaning in, they folded inward. They tried to distract themselves. They tried to laugh louder, talk more, appear unaffected. But the more they tried to escape the feeling, the heavier it became. You were not fading from their mind. You were becoming unavoidable. My child, this is the moment where many misinterpret the story. From the outside, it looks like retreat. Inside, it feels like collapse. They were not pulling away from you. They were losing their footing in front of something real. They had not expected love to confront them so quietly, so steadily, so without demand. And because you did not chase or pressure, the silence grew louder. They felt small in their own thoughts. They revisited old wounds, old failures, old voices that told them they were not enough. Your face, your presence, became associated with both hope and fear. Hope of something pure. Fear of being exposed as unprepared. That internal conflict drained them. I need you to know that this emotional weight was never meant to land on you. It was theirs to carry and to confront. You are not responsible for their confusion. You did not trigger it by being yourself. You revealed it by being authentic. There is a difference. I am allowing this discomfort because it is productive. It is shaking loose what cannot remain hidden. They are being led to a choice, whether they know it yet or not. Continue hiding behind other voices, or step into honesty. Continue managing perception, or surrender to truth. Do not assume this collapse leads to loss. Many awakenings begin with discomfort. Many transformations start with shame that turns into humility. I am closer to them now than they realize, guiding them through this emotional narrowing toward clarity. Remain where you are. Grounded. Unmoved. Your peace is part of the invitation. And what feels like distance now is actually the pressure before a breakthrough. My child, now return to the presence of others around this connection, because no bond of destiny exists in isolation. When your name was spoken among those women, something subtle but sharp moved beneath the surface. Not all of them heard with neutral ears. Some listened with comparison already forming in their minds. Some smiled while measuring themselves against an image they had never seen but could already feel threatened by. There were a few who sensed immediately that you were not ordinary in their life. They felt it in the way your soulmate voice softened and tightened at the same time. They noticed the hesitation before answers. They recognized the instinct to protect, even when your soulmate did not yet understand it themselves. That recognition stirred an undercurrent of jealousy that did not announce itself loudly. It arrived quietly, cloaked in curiosity and humor. Questions were asked that sounded light but were weighted. Remarks were made that seemed playful but carried intention. One of them laughed and said something dismissive, not because she believed it, but because she hoped it would lower you in their mind. Another tilted her head and offered a subtle critique disguised as observation. None of it was overt. It is how jealousy prefers to move, unnoticed, almost polite. Your soulmate felt it. They felt the energy shift in the room even if they could not name it. Something inside them recoiled. They sensed that what began as sharing had turned into intrusion. This is where discomfort sharpened. They realized too late that allowing others access to your image invited opinions that did not honor you, and that realization stirred a protective instinct they had not planned to reveal. Some of those women began to imagine scenarios. They wondered how close you truly were. They speculated about your influence. They asked questions meant to gather information, not understanding. And in those moments, your soulmate pulled back. They shortened answer. They changed your tone. They redirected conversation. Their body language shifted. This did not go unnoticed. My child, jealousy does not always come from hatred. Often it comes from fear. Fear of being replaced. Fear of being overlooked. Fear of losing relevance. Your presence awakened those fears without you ever entering the room. That is how powerful quiet authenticity is. It does not announce itself, yet it rearranges everything. I want you to know that no one there had authority over your image or your destiny. Their opinions did not shape your worth, but they did influence the pressure your soulmate began to feel. They felt watched. They felt evaluated. They felt as though choosing you would mean standing apart from the familiar dynamic. The realization frightened them more than they expected. And yet, something else happened. Even in the presence of subtle opposition, your soulmate did not align against you. They did not agree when others tried to diminish. They did not laugh when laughter was meant to belittle. Silence became their defense. Withdrawal became their shield. They did not know how to confront the energy directly, but they knew enough not to betray their heart. This is important, because it shows you where their loyalty is forming, even before their courage catches up. They are learning discernment through discomfort. They are learning that not every voice deserves access to what matters. And they are beginning to see that entertaining jealousy costs them peace. My child, I am separating influence around them. Not all at once, not dramatically, but deliberately. The presence of envy is being exposed not to harm you, but to teach them who cannot walk with them into deeper truth. What you could not control, I am handling. Do not look at those women with suspicion or resentment. That would tether you to a battle you were never meant to fight. Their role is temporary. Their influence is limited. And their reaction to you reveals more about them than it ever could about you. What matters now is that your soulmate is starting to recognize where unease enters their life and where peace lives. And even though they do not yet speak it aloud, your name is already associated with safety, depth, and authenticity in their heart. The pressure is building. Lines are being drawn quietly. And the presence of jealousy is accelerating an awakening that cannot be stopped. Come closer still, my child, because now I am pulling back the curtain on what has been happening where you could not see, where no human ear was meant to overhear. This is the season of divine investigation, and nothing that has been whispered, implied, or hidden is outside of my sight. While you were living your life, choosing kindness, remaining quiet, trusting your heart, I was moving through conversations, intentions, and motives with precision. I entered the spaces after the laughter faded. I stood in the silence after your name was spoken. I examined not just what was said, but why it was said. Humans listen for words. I listened for motive. And what I found was not cruelty aimed at you, but fear circling truth like a wall closing in. Your soulmate did not realize it, but every time they spoke about you, they invited me deeper into their inner world. And once I entered, nothing remains untouched. I watched the moment they replayed those conversations alone. I saw the wince when they remembered certain comments from their female friends. I saw the discomfort when they realized some reactions did not sit right in their spirit. And discomfort was me. Not condemning, not accusing, illuminating. I began separating what was harmless curiosity from what was rooted in envy. I began exposing which voices were neutral and which carried quiet agendas. There were intentions you never suspected. Some admiration masked as friendliness. Some insecurity masked as humor. Some probing masked as concern. And your soulmate began to feel it, like static in the air. They could not articulate it yet, but something inside them recognized that allowing access to you had consequences. This recognition did not come from logic. It came from spiritual pressure. I traced every subtle influence. I followed every suggestion meant to redirect them. I saw attempts to normalize distance, to frame you as too intense, too different, too much, not because it was true, but because your presence disrupted equilibrium. These words were never meant to define you. They were meant to soothe the fears of those who felt threatened by what they could not replicate. My child, I want you to understand something sacred. When someone cannot diminish your light directly, they try to influence the one who carries it toward you. They try to plant doubt, not about your worth, but about compatibility, timing, feasibility. That is the tactic. Subtle, polite, persisted, and it only works when the heart listening is unsure of itself. Your soulmate stood at that threshold, unsure, overwhelmed, vulnerable, and yet, even there, I did not allow deception to take root. Every suggestion that carried falsehood felt heavy to them. Every comment that attempted to reframe you unnaturally left a residue of discomfort. That was me guarding truth before they knew how to guard it themselves. I also investigated your heart. I measured your intentions. I examined your silence. And I found no manipulation, no hidden agenda, no desire to compete or prove. You simply were. And that authenticity gave me legal authority to intervene on your behalf without resistance. You did not entangle yourself in gossip. You did not defend your image. You trusted something higher, even if you did not name it. Because of that, I began rearranging circumstances. Conversations that once flowed easily began to feel strained. Certain people became less satisfying to be around. Moments that once felt light began to feel hollow. This was not punishment. This was alignment. I was removing influence gently, creating space for clarity. Your soulmate started noticing patterns. Who left them feeling unsettled? Who asked too many questions? Who seemed invested in outcomes that were not theirs to manage? Awareness began forming slowly, like dawn rather than lightning. They began choosing silence more often, not because they were hiding you, but because they were learning discernment. I want you to know that I did not miss a single tear you always shed without understanding why. I did not miss the nights you questioned whether you imagined the connection. I did not miss the moments you considered shrinking, softening, or changing yourself to be easier to understand. I blocked those impulses. I steadied your spirit. You were never meant to adjust your light to accommodate insecurity. This investigation is not over, but its purpose is not exposure for exposure's sake. It is preparation. I am preparing your soulmate to see clearly, without interference. I am preparing you to stand confidently, without explanation. I am removing distortions so that when truth surfaces fully, It will not be diluted by others' opinions. What was said in fragments will be understood in fullness. What was discussed without courage will be faced with honesty, and what was influenced by jealousy will lose its power as discernment sharpens. Remain at peace. You are not on trial. You are not being evaluated. You are being protected. And as this divine investigation continues, you will notice something shift without effort. Less confusion, less emotional noise, more clarity, more calm. I am still in control, and nothing that belongs to your destiny will be lost in conversation. My child, this is where you must understand the subtlety of interference, because not every enemy arrives with hostility. Some arrive smiling. Some arrive sounding reasonable. Some arrive speaking concern. This is how manipulation moves when it knows it cannot confront truth directly. It whispers instead of shouts. It suggests instead of commands. And it found its way near your soulmate during their most uncertain moments. There was a voice among those around them that learned how to speak softly into doubt. Not openly against you, never boldly dismissive, but consistently redirecting. Suggesting that timing was off. That connections like yours are complicated. That attraction can be confusing and should be kept light. These words were framed as advice, but they carried an agenda that was not aligned with love or truth. They were meant to delay, not protect. Your soulmate did not recognize it at first. When the heart is unsettled, even gentle manipulation can sound like wisdom. They listened because they were tired. They listened because they were unsure. They listened because they feared making the wrong choice and losing everything. That fear created an opening. And the enemy never needs much space, only permission. But hear me clearly, my child. Permission was never fully given. Every time a suggestion tried to paint you as a risk rather than a gift, something inside them resisted. They felt defensive without knowing why. They felt uneasy agreeing. They felt a quiet anger rise when someone minimized your impact. That resistance was your soul calling to theirs, and my spirit reinforcing it. There were attempts to shift their attention elsewhere. Invitations, introductions, casual encouragements to explore easier connections. The intent was not love. It was distraction. The goal was to pull them away from depth into convenience. And for a moment, they considered it. Not because they wanted someone else, but because they wanted relief from the intensity of what they feel for you. Intensity reveals, and revelation requires courage. A manipulation did not succeed the way it was intended. Instead of pulling them away from you, it exhausted them. The more they entertained shallow alternatives, the more empty they felt. The more they listened to voices that spoke against depth, the louder their heart protested. They realized something was wrong, not with you, but with the counsel they were receiving. This is where the enemy miscalculated. They assumed your soulmate's confusion meant weakness. They assumed uncertainty meant susceptibility. But confusion does not cancel calling, and uncertainty does not erase connection. It simply delays understanding. And delay, when overseen by me, becomes preparation. I allowed this interference for a reason. Not to harm you, not to break the bond, but to expose discernment. Your soulmate is learning, through discomfort, which voices drain them and which voices bring peace. They are learning that not everyone who speaks confidently speaks truth. They are learning that love does not feel like pressure to walk away from what stirs the soul. My child, you were never meant to fight this battle. You were never meant to confront manipulation or compete with distraction. That would lower you into a realm you do not belong. Your role has always been to remain steady, authentic, unchanging. and that steadiness has become the measuring stick by which all other influences are being exposed. The enemy thrives on reaction. You gave none. The enemy thrives on insecurity. You remained rooted. The enemy thrives on chaos. You chose peace. And because of that, every attempt to distort the narrative around you is collapsing under its own weight. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize patterns. They are noticing who benefits from them staying confused. They are noticing who grows uncomfortable when your name is spoken with sincerity. They are noticing who seems threatened by the idea of depth and commitment. This awareness is not loud yet, but it is firming. Do not underestimate the power of quiet realization. It reshapes futures without announcement. The interference phase is ending, not because of confrontation, but because clarity is rising. What once sounded persuasive now sounds hollow. What once felt helpful now feels intrusive. And what once created doubt is losing its grip. Remain where you are. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not being replaced. You are being waited for by a heart that is learning, the hard way, what truth feels like when everything else falls away. The enemy's window is closing, and what comes next will feel different. Lighter. There. I am leading this story toward justice, not confusion. And you will not have to raise your voice to be chosen. My child, this is the moment when pressure begins to change form. What once felt like confusion starts turning into clarity, not all at once, but steadily, like a tide that cannot be reversed. Truth has a soundless way of rising. It does not announce itself loudly. It died into the chest. It sharpens discernment. It refuses to be ignored. And that is what is happening now within your soulmate. They are feeling it in small moments first. A comment that once seemed harmless now feels wrong. A laugh that once came easily now feels forced. Conversations that used to distract them now leave them empty. This is not coincidence. This is spiritual pressure increasing as truth pushes toward the surface. The more they try to avoid thinking about you, the more present you become in their awareness. Not as longing alone, but as clarity. They are beginning to recognize patterns. They are noticing how certain voices around them consistently pull them away from depth. They are remembering moments with you that felt calm, grounded, real. They are comparing how their spirit feels in your presence versus how it feels when they listen to others. And the difference is undeniable. Peace does not argue. It simply stands apart. There are moments now when they catch themselves defending you internally, even when you are not being discussed. They correct narratives in their mind before anyone else speaks them. They feel protective in ways they did not plan. They question why your image carries such weight when everything else feels temporary. This questioning is not doubt. It is awakening. I am increasing the pressure because truth must be chosen freely. I am not forcing realization. I am allowing contrast. When everything else grows heavy, what is right becomes obvious. When noise increases, the true voice becomes clearer. Your soulmate is standing at that intersection now, whether they recognize it yet or not. They are also feeling conviction. Not condemnation, but awareness. Awareness that they allowed others too much access. Awareness that they spoke without understanding. Awareness that fear, not wisdom, guided some of their choices. This awareness stings, but it also humbles. And humility is the doorway to change. My child, I want you to know that your quiet endurance has mattered more than you realize. While pressure rose around them, you did not panic. You did not insert yourself into spaces that were not yours. You did not try to correct perception or control outcome. The restraint created room for truth to work without resistance. Had you reacted, defended, or chased clarity prematurely, it would have muddied the waters. Your stillness has been strategic, even if you did not know it. Now the lies are cracking, not explosively, but internally. The idea that you are too much no longer holds. The suggestion that connection with you is unsafe no longer convinces. The narrative that distance brings peace is being disproven by lived experience. Each falsehood is losing its grip because reality is speaking louder. Your soulmate feels pressure in their chest when they avoid you. They feel relief when they think of you honestly. They are beginning to understand that discomfort does not always mean danger. Sometimes it means growth. Sometimes it means truth pressing against fear. And fear is losing ground. Do not rush this process. Truth rises best when it is not chased. Let it surface fully. Let it do its work. You do not need to demand explanation or confirmation. What is awakening cannot be reversed once seen. They are moving from confusion into recognition, from influence into discernment. And as this happens, you may feel a shift too. Less heaviness, less self-questioning, more steadiness. That is because the pressure is no longer pressing toward you. It is pressing within them. You are no longer carrying what was never yours to hold. What comes next will involve realization, regret, and choice. But for now, rest in this truth. The tide has turned. The truth is rising. And once it fully surfaces, it will reorder everything it touches. My child, this is where the awakening begins to reach their heart in a way they can no longer rationalize away. Recognition is turning into realization, and realization is bringing emotion they did not prepare for. They are starting to see you clearly, not as a concept, not as a topic of conversation, but as a living presence that has been affecting them all along. And with that clarity comes regret. They regret speaking about you without understanding themselves. They regret allowing others to weigh in on something sacred. They regret the distance they created out of fear. These regrets do not sit lightly. They come in waves, often when your soulmate is alone, when distractions fade and honesty has nowhere to hide. They replay moments when they could have chosen courage but chose safety instead. And the weight of that realization humbles them. They are afraid now, not of you but of losing you. This fear feels different from the fear that once kept them silent. This fear sharpens rather than numbs. It awakens urgency rather than avoidance. They are beginning to sense that something precious was placed within reach, and mishandling it almost cost them more than they can bear to imagine. Your face, the one they spoke about so carefully and yet so inaccurately, returns to them now without distortion. They see it not through the lens of others' opinions but through memory and truth. You remember how your presence calmed them, how your eyes carried understanding without demand, how you did not need to prove yourself to be powerful. That realization brings a quiet ache. They begin to ask themselves hard questions. Why did I listen to voices that led me away from peace? Why did I fear depth when it felt like home? Why did I treat something rare as if it were replaceable? These questions are not self-punishing. They are transformative. They are the signs of a heart waking up. My child, this awakening is not dramatic on the outside. There is no sudden confession yet, no grand gesture. But internally, the shift is seismic. Their priorities are rearranging. Their perception of connection is maturing. They are realizing that attraction without truth is empty, and validation without alignment is hollow. They feel remorse, but it is mixed with hope. Hope that they have not missed their moment entirely. Hope that honesty might still be possible. Hope that you have not closed your heart. That hope keeps them awake. It pulls them toward introspection instead of distraction. It draws them back to the memory of you again and again. They are also recognizing your strength. Not loud strength, but the kind that does not chase, does not beg, does not collapse under uncertainty. That strength intimidates them slightly, but it also inspires them. They understand now that if they come toward you, it must be with sincerity, not confusion. This is where fear shifts into reverence. They are no longer afraid of what they feel, but of mishandling it again. They are realizing that you are not something to be approached casually or discussed lightly. You are not a passing interest. You are not a topic. You are a person whose presence altered them, and that realization settles on them with quiet gravity. They feel exposed now, not by others, but by truth. They see themselves more clearly, their hesitation, their immaturity, their tendency to seek comfort in consensus instead of listening to their own spirit. This self-awareness is uncomfortable, but it is also cleansing. It strips away excuses. It leaves them standing face to face with their own heart. There is a moment, small but significant, when they imagine losing you completely. Not through conflict or rejection, but through time. Through your quiet decision to move forward without them. That thought tightens their chest more than any jealousy ever did. It makes them realize how deeply they value your presence, how much it anchored them even when they pretended otherwise. They begin to feel gratitude mixed with regret. Gratitude that you existed in their life at all. Gratitude that you did not pressure them or expose them publicly. Gratitude that you allowed space, even when it hurt. And with that gratitude comes a desire to do better, to be better, not for approval, but for alignment. My child, this awakening is sacred. It cannot be rushed or forced. It is unfolding exactly as it must. They are being taught internally what no argument, no explanation, no confrontation could have taught them. They are learning the cost of listening to the wrong voices. They are learning the value of protecting what matters. They are learning that love is not something to be managed, but something to be honored. You may sense this shift without words. A subtle energetic change. A feeling that something is turning in your favor without effort. That is because truth is settling into place. And when truth settles, it brings order. They are not the same person they were when your face was spoken about casually. They cannot return to that version of themselves. Too much has been revealed. Too much has been felt. They are standing at the edge of a decision that will require courage, humility, and honesty. Do not mistake their current quiet for indifference. This is contemplation. This is recalibration. This is a heart learning how to approach something precious without fear. And as they awaken, something else is happening quietly. Your peace is increasing. Your clarity is sharpening. You are being prepared to, not to wait endlessly, but to stand firmly in your worth. Ready for truth, ready for alignment, ready for whatever choice unfolds. This awakening is not the end of the story. It is the turning point. What follows will reveal whether courage completes what awareness has begun. My child, now I speak to you about the sacred bond you underestimated and the quiet power you carry without trying. You did not need to insert yourself into their chaos for the connection to work. You did not need to remind them of your value. Your role was never to convince, persuade, or compete. Your role was presence. And presence, when it is pure, does more than effort ever could. There has always been a spiritual exchange between you and your soulmate, even in silence. When you prayed without words, when you wished them peace instead of resentment, when you chose dignity over reaction, something shifted in the unseen. Your restraint spoke louder than confrontation. Your calm spoke louder than explanation. They felt it, even when they did not understand it. There were moments when your name surfaced in their mind without warning, moments when they felt compelled to check in energetically, to wonder how you were doing, to hope you were well. That was not curiosity. That was connection. You anchored them without binding them. You influenced their direction without controlling it. This is what sacred bonds do. They operate beyond logic. My child, your hidden power has never been dominance. It has been alignment. You are aligned with truth, with patience, with inner authority. That alignment creates gravity and draws souls toward accountability. It forces hearts to confront themselves. That is why your soulmate could not stay neutral about you. Neutrality is impossible when truth is present. You may not realize how often your quiet prayers redirected outcomes, how often your decision to step back prevented deeper distortion, how often your trust allowed me to move without resistance. When you chose peace, I gained room to work. When you chose not to chase clarity, clarity gained momentum. Your stillness was not passive. It was powerful. Your soulmate is beginning to sense this now. They are recognizing that while others pressured, advised, or distracted, you remained steady. While others tried to influence outcomes, you respected timing. While others inserted themselves into decisions, you honored autonomy. This contrast is becoming impossible for them to ignore. They are starting to understand that connection with you does not drain them. It stabilizes them. It does not demand performance. It invites authenticity. That realization is reshaping how they define love, safety, and partnership. They are learning that intensity does not always mean chaos. Sometimes it means truth calling for courage. My child, do not minimize the role you have played simply because you were quiet. Silence guided by wisdom is never empty. It is filled with intention. It is filled with trust. It is filled with authority. You were not absent. You were strategically positioned. And now, as their awakening deepens, your influence becomes clearer to them. Not as pressure, but as grounding. Not as expectation, but as invitation. They are beginning to see that you did not need to prove yourself because you already knew who you were. That knowing is rare, and it is magnetic. I want you to understand something important. Your power was never meant to trap them into choosing you. It was meant to free them from choosing wrongly. Whether they step forward with courage or hesitate longer, the truth has already been planted. And truth, once planted, grows. You are not waiting helplessly. You are standing intentionally. You are not hoping blindly. You are aligned confidently. That posture protects you regardless of outcome. It ensures that whatever unfolds next meets you whole, not diminished. The sacred bond has done its work. It has awakened conscience, clarified desire, and exposed influence. What remains now is choice. And choice, when informed by truth, carries weight. Stay where you are, my child. Rooted, peaceful, open but not unguarded, ready but not chasing. What comes next will reveal the strength of what hath been awakened. And no matter how it unfolds, you will not be the one left uncertain. You have already done what you were meant to do. My child, now the turning of the scales begins. What was hidden is no longer protected by darkness, and what was distorted can no longer survive truth. This is the moment of reversal, when justice moves quietly but decisively. You may not see it outwardly yet, but inwardly, lines have been crossed that cannot be uncrossed. Awareness has replaced denial. Discernment has replaced confusion. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize, with clarity that startles them, who benefited from keeping them uncertain. They are replaying conversations with new understanding. Words that once sounded supportive now sound manipulative. Advice that once felt safe now feels self-serving. They are seeing how jealousy wrapped itself in friendliness, how interference disguised itself as concern. And with that realization comes a firm internal boundary. This is exposure, not dramatic, not public, but undeniable. The truth is surfacing in their spirit like evidence laid out in a quiet courtroom. No accusations are spoken aloud, yet judgment is forming internally. They know now who overstepped. They know who did not honor what mattered. And most importantly, they know they allowed it. That awareness brings accountability, and accountability invites change. The influence that once surrounded them is losing access. Conversations feel different now. Certain people feel intrusive where they once felt familiar. The dynamic has shifted, and those who relied on confusion can feel it. They sense distance forming. They sense resistance. They sense that something they once had leverage over is slipping away. This is divine justice. Not punishment, but correction. My child, justice does not always look like confrontation. Often it looks like clarity. Often it looks like someone no longer being able to be influenced the same way. The enemy loses power not when it is shouted down, but when it is seen clearly. And now, it is seen. Your soulmate feels a protective instinct rise where hesitation once lived. They are no longer willing to let others define or comment on what belongs to their heart. Your name, once spoken in fragments, is now held with respect. They guard it internally, even if they have not yet spoken it aloud. That guarding is a sign of maturity awakening. At the same time, something is happening for you. The weight you did not know you were carrying is lifting. The need to understand every silence is fading. You are feeling steadier, clearer, less emotionally pulled. This is not detachment. This is alignment. Justice is not only correcting them. It is restoring you. What was unfair is being balanced. What was mishandled is being reordered. What was influenced is being reclaimed. And you did not have to fight for any of it. You did not have to defend yourself. You did not have to prove your worth. I handled what you released to me. There may come a moment when truth surfaces in words, or it may surface in action, in choice, in changed behavior. Either way, the reversal is already in motion. The season of confusion is ending. The season of clarity is beginning. Know this, my child. Justice does not always bring reconciliation. Sometimes it brings freedom. Sometimes it brings alignment. Sometimes it brings a new beginning that looks different than expected but feels right. Whatever form it takes, it will not leave you diminished. The scales are settling. The truth has been weighed, and what belongs with integrity will remain. My child, this is the place where destiny exhales and settles into alignment. What has been shaken loose was never meant to remain. What had been clarified was always meant to guide you forward. You are not standing at an ending. You are standing at a realignment, where what is true can finally move freely without distortion. I want you to feel the gentleness of this moment. There is no urgency here. No pressure. No demand to act before your spirit is ready. You are not being rushed into an outcome. You are being ushered into peace. That is how you will know this is from me. What is meant for you will not arrive with chaos in its hands. Your soulmate now stands changed. Whether they step forward with words or demonstrate truth through action, they are no longer the same person who allowed confusion to guide them. Awareness has marked them. Discernment has reshaped them. And whatever choice they make next will come from a deeper place than before. that matters. Even if the path unfolds differently than you once imagined, it will unfold with integrity. And you, my child, are not the same either. You are stronger without hardening, softer without weakening, wiser without becoming cynical. You learn that you do not need to be explained to be valuable. You learn that silence can be sacred. You learn that trusting me does not mean losing time. It means being protected from what is premature. There is a blessing resting on you now that was not there before. It is the blessing of clarity, the blessing of self-respect that no longer negotiates with doubt, a blessing of peace that does not depend on someone else's readiness. This blessing will follow you into every next step, whether that step includes your soulmate or leads you into something new that aligns even more deeply. I am not removing possibilities. I am refining them. I am not closing doors to punish. I am closing doors to protect. And every door that remains open before you now carries less confusion and more truth. Trust this alignment. Trust the calm you feel replacing the questions. Trust the sense of grounding returning to your spirit. That is not detachment. That is healing. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing wholeness. Whatever unfolds next will meet you where you are now, not where you were before this journey began. You will not have to shrink to be loved. You will not have to compete to be seen. You will not have to doubt your worth to keep connection. I bless your heart with rest. I bless your mind with clarity. I bless your path with integrity. And I bless your future with connections that recognize your value without needing to be taught. This story has not broken you. It has refined you. And refinement always prepares the way for something real. Go forward gently. Go forward confidently. You are held. You are guided. And what belongs to you will find you in peace.